Hi, I'm Chris Dela Cruz, and
Michael Dela Cruz.
we're Expanded Awareness.
In this episode of Expanded Awareness, we have a special person that we're gonna interview and get to know. Her name is Tanya-Marie Dubé. She's gonna share with us how she started this journey. She's an online educator, and she's just looking to empower women entrepreneurs all over the world. So, Tanya, let us know, how did you get into becoming an online educator? Like, what was your journey on that?
Sure. Well, thank you. And let me say thank you so much for having me here. I think this is really exciting. I'm really, really happy to have this space with you. What got me into the online education world is, well, I have a background of over 20 years of coaching one-on-one, predominantly mindset and personal development. And you want me to tell you how I got into that?
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Okay, so long story short, but I was born into the foster care system, and I lived in 7 homes by the time I was 2. And so from the time I was 2 until 10, I had a family fight to keep me. We were super close. Yeah, we were super close. The father of the family, I called him my papa, and I call her my nanny, and I grew up with their grandchildren, so they became effectively my grandparents that way. But yeah, they raised me, and he raised me with really strong, very old-fashioned morals and values and stuff like that, but living in integrity. And he taught me a lot about what it means to go inside and just to really see myself inside the world properly. I had a mother who was addicted to drugs and alcohol, and she had a daughter before me that she put up for adoption. I was put into foster care, and so she wasn't doing very well. And in a way to make sure that I didn't look at myself as the problem or the reason why, he was teaching me all these amazing things that would later come in handy. So at 10, I went to go live with my mother and my stepfather, and he ended up being violent. He was, he had pedophilic tendencies. He was a predator in every way imaginable. And by the time I was 12 years old, I ended up living on the street. So I was a homeless street kid from 12 to 18 years old, on and off, with my biggest thing being education. For me, my whole entire identity was wrapped up in, getting good grades and showing up for school and just being really, really good at something. When I was about 6 or 7, I went to my social worker's office and I heard them call me a statistic. And I remember not knowing what it meant. And I went back to my nanny and I said, "What does this mean?" And we had a big dictionary in the kitchen, and she was like, "Look it up." So I looked up the word, and she used to have me spell it out and use it in a sentence. And so I was like, well, that's not something that I want to be. And as I got older, I remember keeping that in mind. I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm not going to be a statistic. I mean, what does that really mean, right? We all fit into some category one way or another. But at the time, it sounded so negative. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not going to be boxed in like this. This is not me. So I worked really, really hard to stay in school. And I was, just on and off trying to, I was living at one point in a car. I lived, I snuck into church bathrooms. I lived there, just in my friends' basements. I've lived in a closet.
Oh my gosh.
Name it. It was just to put a roof over my head, because at 12 years old, I mean, that's really young. I remember living under a tree.
So you would rather live on the streets than with your stepdad, kind of thing.
Oh, and my mom, they were both violent. Like, it just was not a good situation. And anytime I see homeless street kids now, I'm like, I think a lot of people don't realize that sometimes what they're living in now is 10 million times better than what they had behind closed doors.
Oh, I bet.
It's really important to remember, and the empathy and the compassion piece is really necessary. Like I always say, like when it comes to homeless kids, the money for me is just the energetic piece, right? Like the reason that we have it is to be able to do things with it, in my opinion.
And have freedom.
It's $5 or $10 when you see someone who really needs it, right? And it's not my business what they use it for. But that generosity and that piece of kindness and giving can change a person's life. That is what will stick with them. It's not the $10, so that stuff really means something to me. So to make a long story short again, I was able to finally leave high school when I was 16. I couldn't live the way that I was living for too much longer, because I was sneaking into people's basements, and now I was like a full-grown person, right?
Oh,
I wasn't a
oh.
kid anymore, and so I needed to change my ways. So I decided to quit school. I had to wait till I was 16, so I didn't get put back into the foster care system.
Okay.
And on my way out, my guidance counselor sat me down and he gave me this Psychology 101 textbook. And he was like, I don't want you to leave. I understand, now, because I didn't tell him what I was going through. And he was like, just please read this book. And I was like, dude, I don't need that book. I was like, I've been in psychology, with psychologists and studying psychology since I was little. I don't need it. But he said, keep it. So I did. And then a little bit in the future, I was in my new apartment and I didn't have any furniture because I couldn't afford it and I couldn't cook. But I had a little table and it had a pink ghetto blaster on it. And I had this textbook on it. And I'm sitting in the kitchen on my floor eating noodles or something. And I look over and I see this book again. And I'm like, okay, I'll start to read it. So I started to read it at 17. And yeah, the law of attraction was finding its way to me. And I didn't understand the energetics of this yet. But every time I would read something or finish a chapter in this textbook, suddenly I would meet at the bus stop someone who needed this information, like the story that they would tell me and the problem that they had or the self-limiting belief or whatever it was. Just was so profoundly similar. I was just like, oh, this is crazy. So the more I read, the more I would meet people who needed this information. So I started coaching really, really young. And even before that too, when people would hear I was in foster care, they would share some pretty deep stuff with me as a child. And it was hard to process back then. But now, yeah, I get it. I'm a healer and I attract people who need this kind of work. And it's been like that my whole life. That's awesome. So that's what's got me here.
Wow. And so you went through all that and something led you to like meeting people at the bus stops and that led you to do what you do today. How long you been doing this so far?
Oh my gosh. Well,
what's your current project? How about that?
Sure. Yeah. So my current project is I hold something called Pop-Up Podcast. So it's, I do the exact same. It's housed under the exact same title, Unblock Her. And it's a series of interviews that I do with, leaders, millionaires, creators, people who are changing the world. And I do them every 5 or 6 weeks. So, basically it's like a Netflix style show. People get to come in. It's all about the missing piece to business expansion. It's spiritual, it's divine. It's all about mindset of business, personal development. I love it.
How do you mix up personal development, money, and spirituality?
Oh, I love that question. That's such a good question. So, well, like I told you earlier in our quick little chat, I started my practice, my spiritual practice about 4 years ago. And I thought, you know what, this is it. This is really funny because for my whole entire life, I was like mindset and personal development. When you can master these things, you can completely change your life. And then I went through this divorce, which, taught me to really look at myself in a really deep way. I was, it was almost like the silence was palpable when the kids went with their father. And I knew that there was this crazy thing I was missing. And I was like, what am I missing here? Like, why is my just mindset and personal development not helping me? At that point, I had been studying for, 22 years. So I was like, what am I missing? So then I realized, when I started this whole interview series back then for the divorce business that I started, I felt called to have this huge spiritual piece to it. And I didn't know why, because I've never been spiritual. I went to one yoga 3-day conference in Toronto, Ontario, and was like, where am I? So I didn't get it, but I knew I had to have it there. And then I met all these beautiful people, all these healers and shamans and, light workers from all over the world. And they were teaching me so much. And I just was the student getting all of this work this way, energetically like this through Zoom. And I just thought, wow, this is fantastic. This is the missing piece. This is the piece that I've been living pieces of it, but didn't realize, right? Like the law of attraction and the energy that comes with manifesting, the use of your imagination. I'm very creative. I just didn't know what these things were called, like many of us. Yeah. But when I could put my finger on it and I was like, oh, that's it right there. The energy behind something, how profound that is. So because I had this other business and I was successful with it, I thought, now in this business, I want to work with people, with women who are changing the world. I want to help with women, with their ideas and their creativity and how connected they can really be to their soul calling. Yeah. And if they don't know their soul calling yet, but they love their business, how can we infuse their soul calling into their business so that they have their soulmate clients come to them, right? So just like I feel like I'm a magnet for people who have gone through things in their life, which, that's predominantly the women entrepreneurs that do come to me. Yeah. We do really, really deep work together. I want them to also feel the magic of being able to be a magnet for their ideal customer to really trust in them. So the three together just makes sense to me, right? Money mindset and healing money mindset blocks and where we get stuck that way is not that different from where we get stuck with business mindset or, any kind of like life or business mindset. So we just call it money, but there's spiritual laws, right? There's laws of the universe that we have to put into play here. And it's not doing anything that people don't already do.
Right.
So
they just don't recognize you're doing it. And whatever your attention goes on amplifies. And so if they knew, they could amplify.
Then you can harness it, right? Then you realize what it is you're doing and how to call it in. And like, I'm getting goosebumps just saying that. I love that so much because it's all very, I love that we're on a spiritual podcast because I can talk about this stuff so freely. Not everybody will get it, right? But when you learn to step out of the three-dimensional world and you're no longer thinking with this 3D mind, but you're now in a position where it's almost like a bird's eye view over the 3D world. And I wouldn't say I'm in 5D yet. I'm working towards that, but I am in that place where I'm understanding myself as this soul in this vehicle 10 million times better than I ever did. And it really gave me a lot of grounding. It was liberating for me. It empowered me to be able to speak my truth. I feel like I'm finally getting out of my way. I'm not 100% there yet, but it's all a process and a journey, right? Yeah, it makes more sense now. I get it now. Yeah.
So how can people get started with you and your program? Like how do people reach out to you?
I would love for them to come on over to this Netflix style pop-up podcast that I have. It's all videos. They're all pre-recorded. They're super, super fun. I'll always have that registration page up. So they can go to unblockher.live. That's where they're always going to be able to do it. Or they can get a hold of me at info@tanyadubé.com if they have any questions. But yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a story about how you might have affected somebody? Something that came back to you later?
Sure. I'll tell you about one of my very first clients that I ever had as an adult. Can I tell you about that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I was when my children were little, I was trying to find my way. Well, I only had one at the time, but I was trying to find my way with like entrepreneurship and, like what can I do? And I felt really called to work with women and I didn't know how. So I was trying all these multi-level marketing programs and like different things that I could still be at home with my daughter. So anyway, I belonged with one of them and I was in the Toronto downtown core, which have you guys ever been to Toronto?
No.
Well, anyone who's ever been to Toronto, there's a whole underground city and the whole underground city is underneath the entire.
Wait, an underground city?
It's crazy. Well, I mean,
Atlantis?
It's like, I wish.
Whoa.
I'd still live there. No, it's like all shops and restaurants and malls, and it's all underneath the ground. Like it's so that the idea is so that in the winter you can get around through the underground without really needing to go up above.
Whoa.
That's cool. I never heard of that.
I am like,
what is this called? What is this city called?
Well, it's just Toronto, but it's just known as the underground.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, look it up. You'll see. So it actually goes pretty far. It like goes blocks and blocks in every direction. And so you can get lost. And I'm a directionally challenged person. So it's not a good idea for me to ever go down there. But I did go down there one day thinking I could go down and around and skip a whole bunch of steps. So on my way, I got lost and I was in rush hour traffic and all this traffic was going towards me to go towards Union Station, which is where everyone goes to go home. And I'm trying to weave my way through this, this crowd of people. And I see a man standing by himself over there, this man from India, and he was just standing there. And I was like, I needed direction. So I said to him, do you know where I can go to get to wherever I was going? And he was like, yeah, sure. So you go straight down here and you make a left and you make a right. And I was like, no, that's not going to work. So he started laughing and he's like, do you want me to show you? And I said, yes, please show me. So he tells me, a little bit, it's awkward. We're standing beside each other. We don't know each other. And so I'm like, what do you do? And, are you married? Because I was working with women and could put together these packages and Mother's Day was coming up. So I said to him, let me make something for your wife. Here's my card. Give me yours. I'll give you a call in about a week. We'll work something out. And he was like, sure, that sounds great. So we part ways. And a week later, I, in my notes, it says call him. So I gave him a call and his voice was weird. And I said, what's going on? And this usually, I'm telling you, people are put in front of you for a reason. Yes. We have got to keep talking to people because we're there for a reason, right? So I said, what's going on? Because I could feel it. Energetically, people will tell me things about themselves. I think there's that connection it's quiet, it's unsaid. It's just this thing. So he tells me the day I met him, he got word that his wife was leaving him. And he also got fired from his very big position job.
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, well, what's the plan? So he's like, I have no idea. She's gone and I don't have my job. And he wasn't feeling good about life. So we started this friendship that ended up going on for like 8 years. I know. So at the beginning of this friendship, though, I said to him, he was like asking for help. And I said, well, I've never been divorced. I don't know what that feels like. I've never been left like that. And I've never had a career like yours. But what I can say is if you just please do everything I tell you to do, your life will change. Do you promise? Like, can you just say that? Because you've got nothing to lose. Just say yes. Just say yes. So he was like, okay, done. So I said, let's make a list of everything you've always wanted to do, but you couldn't do because you were married or because you didn't feel like she would let you, or you didn't, you felt like you needed to ask permission, but didn't have time or whatever. So we made this whole list. And the first thing was skydiving. And I was like, okay, I guess you're going skydiving. And he's like, I'm not ready. He's
like, now I got to do it.
I got to do it. We're going to do these things one thing at a time. And then we'll coach about it after, right? We'll talk about it after. So we did it. So we went through his whole bucket list of all of these things. He ended up getting his PhD. He jumped out of a plane. It was like crazy. My God. And so this went over 8 years, but for 5 years, it was really intense like this. Like, he would disappear for a little bit and then he'd come back or I'd, get him back. And I would say it was all by email. And then every now and then we'd meet up for dinner, but it was really interesting and it was fantastic. And at the end of it, funny enough, he wrote to me one day and he said, she and I have been talking again and I think we're going to get back together. And I said, this is amazing. Do you think this is a good idea? Like, you feel good about this? And he said, yeah. And he said, I feel like I am now the man that I was meant to become, but never was when we were married. And she could feel that. And I was like, you did it. Like, he did it. He did it all by himself. So anyway, that was one of my very first clients. And it wasn't a paid thing, right? It was just this friendship that I made and someone who needed my help. And I was in the right place at the right time. And we're still friends now.
Are you able to intuitively feel what people need? Like, you could kind of feel that he needed this. Yeah. And then you kind of guide them along and give them reassurance.
That's it. And I get to know people. And I think with my psychology background, my education, I tend to analyze things really quickly and I'm a really fast processor too. So I ask a series of questions, not on purpose. Like, it's not I'm not trying to size someone up, but I tend to ask a series of questions so that we can get down to like the real answer and not an answer they think I want to have. Right.
Oh.
And then from there, it's really easy to start guiding this conversation and where it's supposed to go. I'm also a little bit, psychic. I've got a little bit of like mediumship in me. It's not fully realized yet, but it's that intuitive connection that I have. This is also something that I teach in my work. The connection to your intuition, that gut feeling, is never something to like ever second guess.
Yeah.
So for me, I am 100% guided by my gut. If my gut says turn left, I am turning left. And there's always something there for me. And when I ignore it, there's also something there for me that I don't want.
Yeah.
How can people differentiate when it's in their head and they're thinking it and when it's in their gut?
It's like, there's steps to getting there, right? Like, you have to learn how to slow down your mind. Like, this was a huge thing for me years ago when someone would say, you should meditate. I was like, are you nuts? I can't slow down this. This is crazy. This is like going constantly. And I really believed it. And of course, because I said it, I made it true. And then when I was going through my divorce and I needed to really calm myself down, because that's just a whole other thing. Like, not only was I in this divorce and fighting off all of those things, but I was also learning about myself and facing some very hard truths about myself that I didn't know if I was ready to know yet, but I had to trust the process and the timing. So it was a lot. So learning how to meditate seemed easy now compared to all of that stuff. So I learned how to do it, and I slowed down my mind and I slowed down my thinking. And then I was able to start catching those subconscious thoughts that rule our world. So I was able to catch the thought, cancel it out, replace it with something that is true instead. And then I was able to, go from there.
Wow.
So for me, I've always listened to my gut, even when I was a kid. It saved my life many times, I'm sure. But as an adult, that's what I would say that you need to do. You need to be able to slow down the mind so that you can catch those things. And when you catch those things and you reaffirm what your truth is and what you want to believe instead, that's positive and life-changing and life-affirming, that builds the confidence to trust yourself. And once you trust yourself and you get that intuitive hit, you're not second guessing it because you trust yourself. Yeah. So there's all these steps that go before that, right? And I think it's the trusting ourselves that really gets people.
But you know what? With your background, Tanya-Marie, you've had to trust yourself, and everything in your life has trained you for this. I can totally see it. It's very clear. And most people don't have traumatic experiences as bad or don't have that training. They're just kind of existing and they don't know where or what to do. But it sounds like you got a really, really sharp and keen sense of what to do.
I do. And it's always been like that, like from the word go for me when I was younger, especially like you were just talking about, like the trauma of living on the street when I was a kid, like it was what it was at the time. And I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I was just sort of in it and living through it.
And probably trying to survive. So you didn't have time to
survive. Yeah. And when my gut said run, like I ran, right? When I walked into a space that I wasn't familiar with and my gut said know where the exit signs are, I knew where the exit signs were. Like, so it started off like that. So I was almost like a wild animal in that sense, right? Like I needed to know where all the things were
for safety.
So that if something went wrong, I was keeping myself safe. Or if I was meeting new people and I wasn't sure about them, if I got any kind of a hit, that they were dangerous in any way, I did the Irish goodbye. I just backed
How did you go from that to learning how to calm yourself and be able to receive? Because it sounds like all that energy is kind of observing, just like
my God.
Really, really like adrenaline. How did you get to the the calm? Because I feel a calmness in you too.
Well, I learned do we still have time to talk?
Yeah, okay. We got time.
I went through, in 2005, I lived in England. And when I was in England, I lived there for about 9.5 months, something like that. Or no, a little less than that, 8.5 months. I was pregnant with my daughter. And I was 6 months pregnant when the London bombings happened. And I was on the bus in front of the one that blew up. And so I was like 25 feet from that bus. And I was in the very back seat, in the very back row. And I turned to watch the explosion finish. Like it happened, my bus lifted off the ground, everybody lost their mind. I turned around to see the roof come down on the bus, on the people who were still left up there. There was smoke and debris everywhere. That situation made me stop. And, funny enough, the night before this bombing happened, there was the night or 2 nights before that, there was this whole thing on National Geographic I was watching in England. And it was all about slowing down the central nervous system when you're pregnant so that if crisis happens, you don't go into labor. So there was this whole stepped system.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they were like, take some deep breaths, focus on the person who needs it the most, like just make sure you're tending to that person so that your mind is off of yourself and you're not panicking. So that's easy for me to do. I do like always doing that anyway. But holy moly, in this moment, I was the last person off my bus because I was so pregnant. I didn't want to get knocked around. And it was surreal. It was absolutely insane to go through something like that. I've never seen that before. I've never been through it. Time completely slowed down.
Wow.
And I got off the bus and someone grabbed me and then it all sped up again. The sounds all came through. Like it was wild and horrible, right? Yeah. And so this woman grabs me And she came back for me. She was on my bus. It was her face that made me turn around to see what was happening behind me.
Okay.
She left. She came back for me, grabs my arm. She pulls me down the street, pulls me around the corner, and puts me in a house and closes the door. And now I turn around and I'm in a safe house for this church, this local church run by these two older Irish couples. And they just took care of me. They took care of everybody. I was very pregnant, so they all wanted to make sure I had food. So that's the long answer to your question, but it was the beginning. It was there, right? Because now I was learning that crisis is real, and that what I had went through was different. It wasn't the same thing. This was wild. This was like, this could have ended my life and my child's life. I saw all kinds of horrible things that day, and that was the beginning. It changed me. So it made me quieter. It made me go inside a little bit more. It made me question what I really want from my life, as a mother and as a woman. I knew then almost that my marriage was rocky already. And it's still, I didn't leave for another 10, 12 years after that.
Was it because of security?
I just felt like life can change so quickly that we don't really have the time to be in the wrong situation.
Oh,
we don't have the time for that. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions in life, is that we have time. We don't really have time. We have to go to bed at night with the understanding that tomorrow might not come, but we don't think like that, right? So that opened my eyes to that thinking. And then it was 6 years after that I realized I had post-traumatic stress disorder, and I got some help for that through EFT tapping. And so that changed everything for me. That's when I was still a psychology student, and I kind of self-diagnosed, but I had a feeling just going through my books. I was like, I think this is what I'm going through. I was having panic attacks a lot. At night, I love going night walking, but at night I just couldn't anymore. And so I went through EFT tapping. That was my first foray into calming down, so I was adding to that. And then I knew that I had to get out of that relationship if I was really going to become, who I wanted to get out of the way to become.
Yeah.
So it was all from there on. It's been about peace. Like I have this little rock. Can you see what this says?
I
see it.
I love it. I love it.
It says peace. My daughter painted this for me, but this is like, it's meaningful for me to have these things lying around all over the place that I see, to remind myself that I'm not going to be anything that I really truly want to be if I can't be still enough to hear myself, right? Like I really do believe my spirit guides are all around me, and I rely on that. I don't go through life anymore thinking it's just me and I'm on my own.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking puts way too much pressure on us. It can happen sometimes. You get all wrapped up and you kind of, forget, and you get wrapped up in the worldly stuff of it, I guess. But then you realize, you got to take a step back and understand that you're not by yourself through your journey at all. And if you can just meditate and just focus on the breath. If you don't know how to meditate, just focus on the breath in and the breath out, and the breath in and the breath out. Just do that for as long as you can handle it, and expand that every time. Imagine your aura with every breath just taking up more and more space so that you're filling the room. That's when our energy starts to rise to a place where our spirit guides can meet us in that halfway point. And then suddenly we're clicked in. And that's where you set the intention. And that's where you decide together. The things just drop in, right? Like what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to go, who you're supposed to connect with. Especially if in your meditation you say things like, use me to say what needs to be said today. Put me in front of the right people. Like I will get out of the way. That's why for any interview that I do, I prepare a little bit, but I don't do a ton of preparation, because I want it to be guided. Like I want it just to come through, right? Because whatever needs to be said will be said. Yeah. But yeah,
you're
that's how I learned to calm down.
Yeah, you're like the instrument.
I'm sorry?
I said you're like the instrument.
Yeah, you become like the instrument, and you just step aside and just let it happen. And don't worry about nerves. That always happens in business, right? Like you can't worry about nerves, and you will get excited. Turn it into excitement. It's fun.
Since you've been helping women, have you encountered kind of similar situations?
To my life?
Yeah.
Not similar well, with the divorce world, yes. I met a lot of women who are going through the exact same thing I was going through. That was pretty shocking. Like when you're in business and you start saying the exact words that your clients are using, they're like, oh my God, how did you know I was going through this? That's golden, because then you can really make a really big difference. So that happened a lot. But most of the time, people come to me who are going through pretty crazy life experiences, or they have gone through them and haven't learned how to process through them yet. That's usually what happens. Like, it's rare that people come into my life that don't have something that they haven't worked through, right? I've met people who've had way worse than me. Like, I don't think of my childhood. It's so funny. I when I was younger, people would say, I'm really sorry you grew up in foster care. And I would say, well, I mean, no judgment for what you just said, but why do you feel like you have to be sorry for that?
Right.
Yeah.
For me, this was one of the best experiences of my life. And the same thing with all the other things that happened at the time. Did I want to go through them? No, I didn't. But
it sounds like it's better than the school education. You got the life education.
A million times better, right? And this is like, I would rather be surrounded with people who have gone through amazing things and come out the other end. I mean, that's substance, right? For me in my life, to be surrounded by people like that, I love that so much. So yeah, to me, life experience is a million times better than book smarts, right? Yeah.
And it made you into the person you are today. So, it's not, you either have wins or you have feedback. So nothing is really bad. It might be, it might be perceived that way, but again, it's like shaping the person who you are today. So now you're in a position to
help others.
And
you can pinpoint and get right down to the nitty gritty.
It's true. I try not to also, I'll use it for, to teach, because, we're speaking, the language of the people who we're serving, right? So I'll use good and bad, those words, like, to describe things, because it makes an impact, because this is how, we normally go about our lives. This is good and this is bad. I want more of this or less of this. But I think that it's a good time, I think, to point out that, I don't know, like, I feel like life doesn't have good or bad. It really doesn't, right? It's like all just, and when I say that, I'm saying it with full empathy and compassion for anything anyone's going through. But I really want you to stop and just think about it for a second. If your soul is on a journey to fulfill its purpose on this earth, then the whole point to you remembering and waking up is to have as many experiences as you can. Let your heart be broken. Figure out how to come back from that. Love, again, twice as hard. Figure out how to come back from the failure. It's not failure, it's failing forward. Like, change the way you think about things, right? Like, the belief system that's attached to every single thing is going to be in your head, and that's going to provoke your thinking, and then your thinking is going to incite your feelings, and those emotions are going to dictate your actions, and this is how we get unstuck, right? Yeah.
Wow.
I thought that was a good time to say that.
That was a lot. I'm just processing it.
Oh, beliefs. It's so important.
Amazing. Oh, man.
Yeah. So is it next week that your 7-day course is coming out?
Yeah. So the 7-day podcast, the video podcast, starts on the 21st of November and runs itself for those 7 days. In the middle of it, we're having this amazing masterclass, which is going to be really super fun to do as well. But it runs for 7 days, and everyone who signs up for it will have full access to everything for 7 days. And it's like, watch at your leisure. But I'm interviewing some amazing people this time around, and then it'll run again in about, 5 weeks after that, and 5 weeks after that, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I bet your classes are fun. I can feel like you're a very, very with it person. Some people get it, some people don't. You get it, but you're fun. I feel a funness about you.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much.
Well, it's good to know. So,
what's a master class on?
So the masterclass is all about money mindset blocks. So it's called the Money Breakthrough Method. Okay. And it's about, learning how to live your first class life. Like, I think that people don't know how to dream big enough. Like, I want people to get into the imagination and the creativity of the visualization and just live there. Like your background. I love your background in your video. And I was telling you earlier that my daughter and I, My daughter and I, when we go for these hikes, we talk about, how amazing it would be to be able to traverse space, right? To just be up there and to be able to see that, what you guys have behind you.
Yeah.
But what I say to her is, we can do that in our minds. Like, this is how we can time travel. And it's not a physical place to go to, but it's so much fun, like reading a book and getting lost in the story. I want people to get lost in the story of falling in love with their lives and what can we create. So the masterclass is a series of things, but that's one of them. And it's huge to me, like the playfulness that comes with imagining and just letting yourself go unedited, just your wildest dreams. What do you want? And then how can we get there? Right. So
that sounds fun. That sounds really fun. A lot of people don't like the life they're living. And it sounds like you wake up and you're living the life that you want.
Well, yeah, and then you traverse, like, again, that word, you spend time inside of the world participating in it, but you have to remember that you're of the world, but you're not in it, right? Or you're in the world, but you're not of it. You can be separate and still be in it at the same time. So yeah, so it's all about, co-creating our lives. I used to think when I was little, what am I going to make out of myself? What am I going to have for my future? What am I going to create? I. And it was the hardest thing in the world to figure that out. And then I started the spiritual practice, and now it's about co-creating. It's about not forcing. It's about accepting myself for who I am, right? So this is all the stuff that I teach, and being okay with that, and, trusting the timing and the process and all that stuff. So yeah, I love it.
That's beautiful.
What do you think one of the biggest blocks are that most women you encounter have to finances? Is there any commonality?
There's a lot, but one of the biggest ones is not deserving it.
Like, feeling like they don't deserve it? Or
feeling like they don't deserve it. It always comes down to don't deserve it. If they say my partner deals with the finances, it's still a self-worth. Like, why can't you though? Right? Like, why can't we come from a place of not being afraid of money? Why can't we come from a place of understanding the energetics behind it and what we want to do with it, and how powerful it is that it changes who we are as people when we're giving back with that money, right? It's just an energy exchange, really. I mean, we put so much weight on it that it's paralyzing. So yeah, I think it's the deserving piece, like it's the same thing with, I find women, the conversations I'm also having with them just around confidence in what they have, and self-sabotage, and feeling like, the imposter syndrome kicks in. Like,
what's that? I don't know what that is.
Imposter syndrome is thinking in your mind, I don't really deserve this. Someone who's going to find out soon that I don't really deserve it, and they're probably going to replace me with someone who does, and it'll probably be a man. Right? Like, it's underlying everything they do. And some of these women are huge earners. They're massive earners, and they're creating change, and they're doing incredible things. But it's this conditioning that you're a girl, so you are supposed to be doing very specific things, and what you're doing now isn't one of them. And don't make a mess, and don't call yourself out, and don't get all the attention on you. And it's all of this, these beliefs that we have to change and reprogram. It's profound. Yeah.
Do you mind if we ask you a few questions?
No, go ahead.
Okay, we've got some audience questions.
Yeah, please.
This person wants to know, they say they have no problem setting goals and making money, but once they hit the goal, they feel empty and they lose it fast.
They lose the money fast.
Yeah, because they put all their energy into making money, the goal.
They hit the goal, and then
they can't keep it up.
They can maintain it. What would you say to someone that's experiencing that?
To me, I feel like that's that makes me think of me. That's why I was like, then they spend it all. So they kind of like living on the edge, right? I would say that this kind of person is like I would guess, if they're like me, they're a bit of a rebel. They don't like being told what to do. They want to do things by their own accord, but they're stuck in a place of listening to a whole bunch of other people telling them how to do it. Living really close to the edge like that is the story of my life, right? Like, I know I can make it. So I'll just spend it all, and I'll just make more. This is what I used to exactly be like. And I'm coming out of that in the last couple of years, right? I'm learning how to not be like that. And then there's so much importance in not being like that, but it's also not co-creating either. right? Like when your goal is to make money just to have the money, and I'm not saying your listener is like this, but if your goal is to make money just to have the money, then it's not going to last because there's nothing attached to it. If your goal is to make money to do something bigger, right? Or you want to start a foundation, or you want to start a movement, or you want to be able to give big to this charity, or you want to be the wealthy, role model for everybody around you, then the money won't run out because you're going to be in it. Like you're in it for something bigger than you.
Like you have a purpose.
You have a purpose and you're living your purpose. Yeah. And that money, you're understanding the energetics of it and you're not afraid of it anymore. I think when we burn it all to the ground and then start again, which is how I would describe my life in the past. I think that when we do that, it's because we're still living in fear, right? Yeah. We're still letting that fear rule us. And the fear around losing money is what will make you spend it faster than you make it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we do encounter people that they're happy, but then at the same time, they're like, okay, how long will this last?
That was me my whole entire life. I was thinking, I can't sustain anything. Why can't I sustain anything? And that's why I was like, there's a missing piece here.
So what can somebody do to change that mindset?
Oh my gosh, get really, really, really deep with your why. Like there's this process that I use that I learned a few years ago where I'll say, what is my goal? Right? So what is your goal? And then you write down what your goal is and you say, why do you want that? And then you write that out. You have to be writing it. So you write that out, pen to paper. There's something magnetic that happens from the brain to the hand with the pen and reading it back to yourself, right? So don't type it. Okay. So why is that important to me? Why do I want this? Because, and then you write that out. But why is that important to me? And then you write because. And then you go, well, hold on a second, but why did that become important to me when? And then you write that. And it always, when you go, I call it 7 levels deep. I learned this from Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. But when you go that deep with it and you sit with it and you're not just writing, you're sitting with it and you're thinking about it. The very bottom answer to that, if it doesn't have you in tears, you're not doing it properly.
Oh,
yeah, because you need to get to the reasons why. Like if you're afraid of money or afraid to make money, it's not just because it's even hard to say I'm afraid to make money or I'm afraid to lose it. A lot of people don't even know that yet. But when they start going through this 7 layers deep thing, they start to see, oh my gosh, that's right. When I was 5 years old or 6 years old or 12 years old, my parents would fight about money incessantly. Or my mother used to always say, for example, my mother might have always said, we can't afford that. Stop asking me. You're stressing me out. Or, your friends would all be going on a trip and your parents couldn't do it. And they're like, don't even ask. And now you see shame attached to it. So it's important to go do the 7 levels deep and really sit with it. You can even put it down, go back to it the next day, but spend time doing this because you'll find somewhere inside of there why you feel the way you do. And once you find it, then you say, is it true though? Is this true? Is this something
that's where the shift happens. I'm like, how do you find the shift? Knowing why and shifting it. But okay.
Is it true, right? Yeah. Is it true?
Is it true?
It's almost like you have to go to relationship therapy with money. To see, okay, what's,
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's almost like. I think you hit it on the head. It is because our relationship, our relationship with money is what will keep us stuck in a lot of things, right? It'll keep us stuck in really bad relationships. It'll keep us stuck in, bad habits. The fastest way to lose all your money, I find, is to have fear of not being able to keep it. Mm-hmm. It's funny, right? Like what an odd thing that is. Those two things don't really seem like they would go together, but your fear of losing it is what will make you spend it, because now you're filling the void with all of these things that you don't need, and you want to live a life of luxury, and you don't see why you shouldn't be able to, but you're living outside of your means, perhaps. It's like all of these things, right? So to go back to how to shift it, you ask yourself if it's true. If it's not true and not something that you want to believe, you're going to look for the proof in your life where it's not true. And then you're going to ask yourself what you choose to believe instead. And that is the reprogramming. You put those sticky notes everywhere that says that.
How long does that take, the reprogramming?
Not long at all. I think that once you make the decision to make a change like this, you can make the change literally overnight. Nothing needs to take forever. I mean, you just have to make the decision and drop into it and just decide. as a soul in this vehicle, am I going to let the vehicle keep stopping me from getting to where I want to go? No.
Right.
I'm not, right? So I take the emotion out of things like that and just look at it like that, like just straightforward, and ask myself what the answer is. Because I used to be like the person who would start, metaphorically reading the book, get stuck in chapter 2 and never be able to finish the book again. I'd have a bad relationship and I'd be like, that's it. No more relationships for me. I'm done. Close the book at chapter 2, never open it again.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And that kind of thing just isn't a good idea. We're supposed to learn. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say you don't know. Right? Yeah.
Okay. I have a healer friend and she's a fabulous person, but she, for some reason, doesn't want to charge. She's scared, nervous. She wants to know, what can she do to overcome the insecurity and charge?
Okay. Well, I feel like the same answer from the last one could apply to this one.
Yes.
Okay.
Attach yourself to something really bigger than you. Like the not charging does come from a lack of self-worth. You feel on some level, you're going to say that you're doing it because you're a kind person and you've been gifted with these gifts by God and, or source, what have you, but you're going to say that you feel like it's weird to charge for these things that you innately know how to do. But if you're going to say that you have a business, you don't really have a business until people are paying you. So again, you got to take the emotion out of it when you're talking about business and just look at the business. Try going into any store where you feel like you should have access to their products without paying for them and see what they say.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mention that to her. Actually, I'm going to have her watch this.
Have her watch it. We will say it's easy to get stuck in martyrdom energetically, right? I don't like labels and I really don't like the word empath either. I think it's a crutch in a way. But I think that she'll say that she's doing it to be kind and because she doesn't feel right about charging for something that's innately gifted to her. But this is what you're here to do, though. Like if you feel so attached to it, and I'm speaking to your friend right now.
Yeah.
If you feel so attached to it that this is what you're going to do with your life, then this is what you're meant to be charging for. People don't make a move or a really big change in their life unless they have skin in the game. And the skin in the game is the money. And if you don't want to charge a large amount of money, you don't have to charge a large amount of money, but you got to charge just enough that's over what they can really afford so that they're reaching for it and they understand the importance of it and that they go after it. Because you're not doing anybody any favors. It's like when someone just calls you on the phone and they keep talking about their problems and you actually spend 2 hours on the phone with them and you don't have 2 hours to spend on the phone with them.
Yeah.
You're not doing them any good by just enabling them to stay stuck, right? So if you know how to help people, you're obligated to help them in this way. But make them reach for it. Like, why would you give it away for free? They're not going to take it seriously.
Right.
That's true. That is very true. I've been trying to talk to her about it because she gives people too much. She'll do like after service calls and the people don't show up.
I used to do that.
Yeah, just going above and beyond. And her intention and her heart's good, but then the people don't respect her services.
I used to do this all the time. I used to trade for wine, for food. I felt really weird about asking anybody for money for it. It felt weird. It felt like it wasn't called coaching back then. If I wanted to do this work professionally, I would have had to become a psychologist, and get my master's degree so that I could actually become a part of the association, the psychology board. Oh. But I didn't want that though. Like it was so weird. So I didn't know what to call myself. I was just had all this advice and could give it, and I was attracting the people who needed it. But when it came down to asking for money for it, there was a lot. I had to work through a lot. I had to work through the feelings of potential rejection. I had to go through, the feelings of really understanding my power and standing in that leadership. Those things are hard. I can see why your friend feels hard, like she's having a really difficult time deciding. But if you're here to do a very specific job and by the grace of God, you have found out what that is, then you are not doing anybody any favors by not making them reach for it. People need people need to reach for it. And one of the reasons is, and I mean this in the nicest way, we're lazy.
Oh yeah.
We can be lazy people, and we adapt so easy to whatever is around us, and we make everything normal. We normalize it so that we can live in it, so it's not painful. Yeah. So if you're going to coach somebody, then take that responsibility seriously and get them to see it differently. And the only way they're going to do that is if they have skin in the game. That's it. And for you, you know, how you're going to get in it to have skin in the game is to attach yourself to something bigger than you and work for that. Call up a charity you really want to work with and say, I am promising you that by the end of the year, I'm going to give you a $10,000 check. And then you go make that happen. Right?
That's awesome.
That's kind of living backwards, but that's cool.
Yeah, I like living backwards. That's good.
A little pressure, huh?
Yeah, it's good. Light a little fire.
That's how diamonds are made, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this question is opposite. This is from a watcher who's a little overqualified. She said that she's scared to just make the move and get out there. She keeps getting degrees, certifications, and she wants people to feel like she's qualified, but she doesn't feel qualified. How can she walk into that power?
Okay. Well, this is the same thing. This is so funny. See how it all comes down to the same thing? It all comes down to self-worth, but I'll answer it differently. I think that when we really desperately need people to give us validation and acceptance, we're on the wrong path.
Okay.
That's your internal GPS system turning you in towards what you need to heal. You know, nobody's ever asked me for my credentials ever. And it didn't bother me, and I didn't even think twice about it until a woman that I used to be friends with, who's a doctor, said, I don't understand this. Hold on a second. What do you do? And I said, at the time I had the divorce business, and I was like, I help women with their mindset and their personal development so that they can go inside, right, and recalibrate what's been going on their entire life so that they can wake up to their soul's purpose. To her, this was like Chinese. She did not understand what I was talking about. And she said to me, don't you think you need to go back to university and get your master's or, you know, pursue your PhD? And I said, well, why do you think I need to do that though? Like what
Good for you.
Well, because I'm curious, right? Like I'm an innately curious person, and I interview people for a living, so it works, right?
I don't think she was expecting you to ask her though.
Yeah, I was like, when for you, this is your path, but this is not really what she wanted to do with her life. This is what she was fulfilling for her parents. So for her, it makes sense to be constantly going after the certifications and to pursue to make people see that she's worth it, and all these things that are attached to it. So this is what your viewer is going through. The self-worth piece, not caring what other people think, is very important. Stand in the power that you already have, because if you're able to do all those things, stop doing them. You don't need to keep doing them. You can just do what you're trying to do without needing to constantly be learning and then applying that learning. This is also like me. You know, I'm like forever a student. Remember I told you when I was a kid, my entire identity was wrapped up in getting 100%, 98%.
A professional student.
On everything. Yeah, professional student. And now still, I love to learn. And I understand that it's okay to skip a few steps for me personally, because I learned this way. And then I can apply what it is that I'm learning fast. Like I'm like her, it seems like. She's like that as well. But when you keep stopping yourself because you think you need to learn more, it's because you think that you need to be accepted and validated and approved of by all these people. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we need to remember that we are balls of light that are taking place in these bodies to pursue a purpose. It doesn't matter what the other person thinks. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't give us permission to be jerks or to not show up properly. What that says is you're there to be in and out. Get in, do the job, leave. It's not about you. It's not about you at all. And this is a hard lesson that I had to learn for myself, because I remember meeting this really spiritual man years before I met Gregory, you know, our friend Gregory Joseph. Years before I met Gregory, I had met this older man who we became friends. He came up to me at a bookshop. He was older, and he thought it was funny that I was reading this book, and we started a conversation. And about a year into our friendship, I said to him, why don't you ever ask me about me? I'm just curious. Curious. Like, you don't ask me my story. Usually people are like, tell me about you.
Yeah.
And you've never asked me that. So I'm just curious to know. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, I don't know. Like, who I am and how I was raised and where I came from has made me who I am. Like that's something to me. That's not something to you. And he said, it doesn't matter to me where you've come from and what you've done. Why would I care about that? And I was like, what?
You know what? That makes sense. When I met Michael, we didn't talk about our past, what happened. It's our life from this day forward and our relationship. So that totally clicks.
Well, his point though, to me, yes, I love that because that's what I'm like now. His point to me though was, why do you insist on keeping an old story alive from 25, 30 years ago that doesn't exist in this time and space right now? You're hurting yourself over and over and over again. It happened. You learned from it. Let it go.
That totally makes sense.
And then he said to me, I want you to make a habit out of creating new things for yourself constantly. So those are the stories you're telling, the ones in the now. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Like that was freeing for me. I was like, wow, okay. I'm no longer going to attach myself to my stories. Yes. Yeah. So not needing the validation and acceptance comes from that, right? We have to heal from these things. They're not things that happened to us. They're things that happened for us to learn. Right. And once we can really get real with that, that's painful. That's a painful thing to hear. But once you get really, really clear on that and you understand the purpose of those things and why they happened, it's so liberating. I can't even tell you. Now you see the through line. You see what you're here to do. You see that you have a master's degree from the universe to give you permission to actually explore this, charge for it, teach it, heal other people. I mean, that's what we're here to do.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need validation.
Great answer. And I feel like that ties, just kind of to add on that, I think that adds also to, the question about money too. If you're always thinking about what other people think to get validation, and let's say you want to fit in with that group of people, then it's just telling you, okay, first of all, if I'm hanging out with people that like don't have money, then I can't have money myself, so I can be part of the group and be cool. So everything, what I got from what you said, everything kind of connects with the money mindset as well.
That's a really good point too. You want to be careful who you surround yourself with all the time because you will become like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Oh, okay.
Are you doing okay with the questions?
Yeah, totally. This is fun.
Okay.
Sure. This person wants to know what they can do. They work with a lot of people and they're in heavy situations all the time. What they can do, they feel like they're taking it home and living the other people's experience. How can they detach and clear from it? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, give yourself a buffer time before your meetings and after your meetings to meditate, sage, clear it out. When you open up the call with your spirit guides before you get into the coaching and the serving and the helping and the listening and the feeling and all of the stuff that comes with coaching, you want to get into like a call with your spirit guides where you open a channel. You ask for spirit to come through you to give you the right words, to help this person with exactly what it is that they need, to open your ears properly so that you're present and you're in the moment and you're getting what it is that they're saying. And then you're going to ask that spirit guide to stick with you, to stay with you. And then you're going to meet at the end to close the call up. When you close the call up, after you get off the call, immediately you don't do anything else. You sit in meditation, sage the room, set the intention to let that go. And then you're going to sit with your spirit guides. Remember, I was talking earlier about, doing the breath work and expanding your aura. You're meeting your spirit guides, invite them into that space, and then you can just sit with them. You can hear what they have to say. If you're that, connected to your spirit guide, you can actually do that.
Like a board meeting?
Like a board meeting. You're going to debrief. And then you say thank you and show the appreciation and the gratitude for having worked through you and worked together. That also builds that confidence with your spirit guides that you're not on your own and that you're co-creating, right? So that's what I would do. Close it up. Once you close it up and you're done your meditation, you've let it go. If you're bringing it back in after that, there's work that you need to do around needing to do that. But you need to be able to close it up, let it go like a package. You can even envision putting it in a box, wrapping it up, putting the bow, putting it aside. Do whatever you need.
Going on the spirit guides, how can you tell when you're getting proper guidance?
Like connecting to positive beings versus earthy,
Like you personally, like do you feel like you're getting the guidance from the highest divine, spirit guides, or
Yeah, I do. Sometimes it's just my highest self. It's interesting. Like it depends. It's really important for us to take care of this physical body that we're in properly, right? So getting outside in nature, deep breathing, drinking a lot of water, doing your best to get a really good sleep. All of these things are going to help you be able to be calm and calm down your central nervous system, so that when you're in meditation, you can get calm. You can slow it all down, and you can just let yourself receive, right? So for me, it was a process. Like I used to be a stubborn person. But I would resist so much of it because I would think, oh, this is kind of stupid, or this feels dumb. I can't get there. And I would stop myself from being able to go the distance. So if you feel any kind of resistance, that's your clue to stick with it. Just stay in it.
Oh.
You push out the thoughts of the day, right? So you'll be sitting in meditation, and the thing you forgot to do will come in, and you say, no, push it away. I'll deal with you later. And then another thought will come in about groceries or some call you have to make, or, whatever, all these things that suddenly you need to do because you don't want to meditate. They'll all come in, and you just push them out gently, and you just create a space. Like what I do is I imagine, okay, do you want to know my whole process to meditation?
Absolutely.
If you don't
I got this from my teacher. So my teacher taught me to, when I'm sitting in meditation, to close my eyes, do the breath work so that my aura is expanding. I'm imagining my aura expanding, and then my aura is filling the room. And then I try to have it cover my house, and then I try to have it cover my neighborhood. And then I'm pulling myself. I can see myself going up further into the sky. And as I'm seeing the planet underneath me, it's covered with this color, whatever color it comes to you. Then from there, I imagine, as I'm still deep breathing, I'm just a being. I'm just being. Right? I'm in this space. I'm just being. In my mind, it's actual space, because I love that. And I love in my imagination to see all the things. Like this is just what I love to do. Next, I imagine a tall pillar of white light in front of me, and it's just white, effervescent, sparkly light. And I see it as I'm approaching it. I imagine it's the same height as me and the same width as me, and I walk through that door. When I walk through that door, I'm still deep breathing. I'm deep breathing all of the white light in through me, and I'm breathing it out, and it's in through me, and I'm breathing it out. It's there that I sit in meditation still with my eyes closed. I'm still doing the breath work, And then I have my spirit guide come and sit with me. Sometimes I see them, sometimes I don't, but I can feel the energy of it. Now by this point, I've done so much breath work, my energy is very high. Right? Like my breath work is in through the nose, hold it for 5 seconds, out through the mouth, in through the nose, right? So I'm constantly doing this the whole entire time I'm using that imagination. Still, your groceries might pop in. You got to push them out. I'm telling you, it's work sometimes, right? It can be work. But anyhow, so then when I'm in that space and I get a hit on, what I'm meant to be doing, now I know that I can trust that now I'm in it. Right? So something from like work might come in, or if I am doing the call to open the call, like I'm having the call with my spirit guide so that I can get into the coaching call, I'm opening the call. It's there that I say, I want you I want to be able to open so that I say the right words and have it all flow through me quickly and easily or slowly, whatever it needs, but use me for that. I'm here for this. In that space, you should be so calm. You're energized. Even if you don't hear or see your spirit guides, just know you're in it, right? They're always with us. So just know you're in it, and then make the intention to have the best call that you can have and to be of greatest service that you can possibly be. And then you say thank you. You just have gratitude and feel the gratitude in your heart. Close it down. You can pull yourself back down to earth if you want to, or just take the breaths just to open your eyes slowly and just get back into your surroundings.
Can we stay up there? No. Do we have to come back? No.
No. I want to stay there too. But yeah, so then you don't do anything else. Just sit in that space. Journal if you want before your call. Don't watch a show. Don't talk to your family members. Just like stay in the space. Yeah. That's
I feel it. When you're saying it, I feel it. It feels so nice.
Right? Doesn't it feel, it's just such this is what I mean when I say like we're not doing it alone. And the moment that we start thinking we have to take everything on ourselves is when it starts to hurt. Like that's another sign that you're not doing it properly. If you're haggard and hurried and you can't find the thing and everyone needs to hurry up and rush, these things are like signs of stop and just slow down for a second. It's okay. Just close your eyes, literally ask spirit guide where it is. You can't find a book, you can't find your keys, just close your eyes, just ask, it'll come. Just ask, believe the answer will come to you. Calm down, it'll come, right? This is how I live my life now.
And for people who like spirit guides are too woo for them, can they like ask their higher self or the universe?
Okay, so before I believed in or understood about spirit guides, before I woke up to all of that stuff, I used to sit with like my 90-year-old self. This is what I used to do. So I didn't know about meditation, nothing like that. I wasn't praying. I wasn't into anything really.
Did your 90-year-old self say, you have to have fun?
Yeah. So I pictured myself sitting with my 90-year-old self, like as a little kid at my 90-year-old self's feet. And so she'd be sitting there and always the answer was, this is not hard. It feels hard. It's not hard, right? You got this. You can go through this. And I always look for proof, right? Like, where's the proof? Where's the proof that I can succeed? Of course I can find proof somewhere that I can succeed. Of course I can find proof that I've been through something difficult and I will get through this too. Of course I can find the proof, but it's up to me to look for it. And then to tell myself, stop with the negative beliefs. Stop hurting yourself this way. It doesn't have to be this difficult. Right? So if you don't believe in spirit guides and angels around you and meditation, you'll have to agree with me on one thing, that breathing feels good. So just deep breathe. Just focus on your breath. You don't even have to call it meditation. You could be on the bus or in your car or whatever, and just take the time to slow it down. Turn everything off. Just breathe. Right? That's all you got to do. So, back when I did not know how to do meditation, or I didn't know anything about any of this stuff and thought it was all crazy and weird, I would still take those deep breaths. And a lot of people do it with smoking and they don't even realize what it is they're looking for. They're looking for breathing and to calm it down. Right? So, just do that. If nothing else, just do that. Just expand your breath. Just let your breath get deeper and wider and deeper and wider and deeper and wider. And before you know it, 5 years from now, you'll look back and you'll be like, I was meditating.
I'm picturing you on a Zoom call with like 90 little people's faces and you're having a breathing party and you're all just breathing and being happy.
That's it.
I love that. That's so fun. I just think it's important. Like, we forget to breathe. Like, how many times do you hold your breath when you're stressed out?
Always.
You forget to breathe. When I was going through my divorce on my cell phone, I put in there on an alarm 4 times a day. All it said was breathe.
You got to remind yourself to breathe, huh?
I know, because we get so caught up in our heads and in this like 3D world of everything is so bad and so big and so scary and terrifying. And, we're led by our fears. We forget to breathe, right? Yeah.
So I got a question. We got to close this up. But what would you tell somebody who has no experience in money, no experience with spirituality, who just wants to do some step forward to get them introduced to the world? What could they do?
Well, this is what I had to do. I literally made three lists side by side.
Okay.
One was, I'm going to try to remember exactly. One was the things I already know how to do, the things I'm passionate about, and the things I've been paid to do. And then I started looking through the 3 to see what 3 things I could put together. This is how I came up with talk show, helping people with mindset and personal development. And then now that I've grown this other business, I can add the money component to it and teach people to calm down about money, right?
Yeah. So
this is how I figured it out. You want to look at what keeps coming up for you over and over and over again. Like the kinds of things where you might say, like when I was younger, I would say, why do I keep dating the same guy? He just has a different face every single time.
Why did you? I'm curious. I know lots of people who do.
I just didn't have, I was always very self-assured and very confident, but I didn't have the self-worth. The self-worth piece wasn't in it. Like I've had a lot of narcissistic people in my life around me, and it's because they want to pull off my energy. But I never understood boundaries. And I was always afraid of saying, stop doing that. I don't like it, for fear of rejection, being treated badly. It's like women with, when we think about physical attack, is, it's scary. And you think if someone was coming at you, you wouldn't want to hit them because you're afraid of being hit back. Right. It's like that. Your self-worth is like that, right? So what you need to learn is to stand up for yourself, and regardless of what comes at you, so what? You stand in your power, and you stand in your leadership, and you stand in that boundary, and you hold the course. That's what it takes, or else you're always going to get stuck with the same problems over and over again. So for somebody who doesn't know what they want to do in the world yet, that's what they have to look for. What keeps coming up over and over and over again? What am I literally getting a first front row seat education in? Right? For me, it was adversity. It was going through one thing after another as a kid and having to survive it, and then putting it behind me. And now I'm at the bottom of the next mountain, climb that mountain. And now I'm at the bottom of the next mountain and climb that mountain, and finding the joy in it, but to answer the question, it's what keeps coming up over and over again. What could you teach someone without ever having to open a book? Right?
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Like it's important, right? Yeah. I think if you're trying to find a soul purpose or a soul calling, it's important to do this kind of work because you're here for a reason. You're here to do something, right? And it always ends up with helping other people. It's being in service in some way. Like it doesn't have to be a big multi-million-dollar company if that's not what you want, but you're here to do something. So it's up to us to slow it down so we can figure it out, right? Or else you're just going to keep going through the same lesson over and over and over. And then you might die not having that lesson. And then you come back and keep having the lesson over
again. Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
Your spirit guys would be like, oh, okay, here we go again.
Tanya-Marie, what can people do when things are uncomfortable? Because growth is uncomfortable. And if people aren't willing to be a little uncomfortable, they're not going to grow. But what can they do when they're in the middle of it?
Well, funny, I find, most of the growth always happens when our backs are up against a wall and we're kind of feeling like we have no choice, right? And I think it's because we're such adaptable creatures, we almost take it for granted. Like we will normalize anything. If it's presented to us long enough and we don't do anything to change it, it becomes normal. It becomes a normal way of life. And you're not able to see it for what it is, because now it's just your everyday life. At first, you might have resisted it, but you stuck with it long enough that it became normal, right? So what would I suggest? I mean, do it when life is good. That way, when life has a bump, you're prepared. I think the worst thing is not being prepared. I really do. From my own personal experience, that is a painful place. It is a keep you up at night place, right? Like you get stunted and you're stuck and the visualizations are not there and the imagination isn't there because you're all out of whack. All your energy centers are you're out of control or you're out of touch, you're disconnected. I mean, you don't want to go there, trust me. And if you've ever been there before, it's this stuff that pulls you out. Right. So I would say just start with the meditation, start with journaling about what you're grateful for in life, figure out what you're here to do now. You might not feel like you need to, light a fire under you quite yet to get you going, but just get those pieces in motion, start planting the seeds, find a mentor, follow them, listen to their words, absorb what they're telling you, make it your life. Right. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
My whole mind shifted when you said the word grateful. Find things to be grateful about. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. It really is. Whatever mood you're in, I feel happy. That's really nice.
Thank you. I think even when you open your eyes in the morning, your first thought should be, if your first thought is, oh my God, what do I have to do? Stop yourself. Your first thought should be, wow, I get to do this again. I'm here.
Oh, you know what? You are so powerful. You are such a powerful person. I can feel it. You just get me like, I want to get going. Yeah.
She has that energy. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. It's
that's
beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your time and your interview and
your wisdom. You're just like a sage.
So
it's beautiful.
Going back to your podcast you're going to be doing, You said it's 7 days?
Yep, it's 7 days. It starts on November 21st. You can go register at unblockher.live, not .com, .live, and sign up for it. And then you're in it and you get to watch all these amazing videos. And I'm interviewing everybody. And it's so much fun. And you're going to learn so much stuff about just unblocking in business, using your voice, finding your wealth, all of that. I love it.
Awesome.
Oh,
yeah. We're going to put that in the description so people can go and find you there. So thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that you want to add to the audience? Anything you want to say?
Have fun with your life, right? Like we're here to have fun. And I think the conditioning as it is as we're getting older is that in order to be taken seriously, you need to act a certain way and be a certain way and show up a certain way for fear of rejection or anything like that. Just don't pay attention to that stuff and just play, get into the play of it. It's so much fun. It can be so much fun when you let go of those stories and just have a good time.
That's so beautiful. I'm so excited. Oh.
All right, Tanya. Well, have a wonderful day or evening.
Thank you.
Whatever time it is over there. But thank you so much for your time.
Almost nighttime. Yeah, thank you. This was so much fun, you guys.
I love you.
We'll stay in touch.
Thank you. Yes, let's please do.
All right, Tanya.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.